For this session, we want to look at deploying roles on remote servers. In order to deploy a role on a remote server from Server 2012 R2, the first thing you need to do is enable remote management. Now, remote management is enabled by default. If we go to the dashboard and click on local servers, we will see that remote management is enabled. To disable remote management, you would have to click here on enabled. And when you click on enable, it's going to open up your dialog box where you can actually turn off remote by saying don't allow remote connection to this computer. But if you're going to be remotely deploying roles on servers, you will need to have remote management enabled. So you want to leave that on. So we're going to say OK and come out of that dialog box. Once remote management is enabled, then in order to remotely manage a server, you actually have to add that server to the server that you're using, which would be your Server 2012 server. So to add the server on the dashboard, you would click on Manage, Add Servers. Once you click on Add Servers, you will see your dialog box open up and you have some choices here. You can add the server by finding it in Active Directory, or you can type the DNS name for the server, or you can import a file. For this exercise, we're going to choose a server by selecting the server, then clicking here on the arrow to take that server over to the selected section. Then we're going to click on OK. Once you've done that, on your Server Manager console, when you click on All Servers, you will see that the server is among the list of servers. Now, how do we go about adding roles to remote servers? Because once you have added a remote server to Server Manager, then and only then will you be able to add roles and features using the Server Manager console. For example, if we needed to add a role to a remote server, we first have to add that server using the Server Manager console. And then when we're adding the role, when we get to the Select Destination page, we will choose that server that we wanted to use. Now, before we look at how Server Manager can work with down-level servers, let's take a look at actually adding the server remotely. In our Server Manager console, we're going to click on Manage, Add Servers. We see that we can search here with Active Directory. We can click on DNS and type the host name, or we can click on Import and import a file. For this lab exercise, we're going to use Active Directory. So I'm going to click on Active Directory and I'm going to say Find Now. And we want to add one of these servers, so we're going to click one of them. And we click on the arrow to take it over to the selected box. And then we click on OK. Once that server is added, then you'll be able to manage it. So if we wanted to manage a remote server, you would simply go to Manage, Add Roles and Features. You would click on Next. You would accept role-based or feature-based installation and click on Next. And then when you come to the select destination server page, you want to click on the server that you added and say next. And then on this screen, you can actually select the role, click on next, add the feature, and install the role on the remote server. Server Manager can be used to manage remote servers that are running Server 2008 and 2008 R2. But if you are going to manage all the servers, that means servers with all the operating systems, you're going to have to install some updates. One of the updates you would have to install for the older systems would be Windows Management Framework 3.0. And to install Windows Management Framework 3.0, you first have to install Framework 4.0 and then install 3.0. Until that update is applied, if you try to run a remote server, if you try to add a remote server, any server that is running Server 2008 or 2008 R2, you're going to get an error of not accessible. Verify that earlier versions of Windows run Windows Management Framework 3. So you can manage Server 2012, you can manage Server 2012 R2 from a Server 2012 remotely. But again, if you're going to manage 2008 or 2008 R2, you're going to need to run the updates. We want to look at how we would enable Remote Manager by using PowerShell. On the computer that you want to manage remotely, at the PowerShell prompt, you can type this command, configure smr remoting exe -enable, and then press enter. So that's configure smremoting.exe. Then if you want to disable remote management using PowerShell, you're going to use the same command, but instead of saying enable, you would choose disable. If you want to view the current remote management setting, you can type at your PowerShell prompt, configure smremoting exe get, and then press enter. So those are just some of the commands that we can use using PowerShell to enable or disable remote management.